story. So again, my name is Sarah M. I'm a co-host with Lee since March of 2020. So happy that we start this journey. So we enjoy every time we get on. We enjoy talking with our guests. So um, I I grew up in Cambodia. I lived through a horrific time in my country when the communist Khmer Rouge took over. At that time, I was in college and away from all my family, and I struggled by myself. I almost did not make it. They mistreated us so badly that I was so sick, almost die. But I'm grateful that God was there. He heard my cry and cry out to him to help me because I want to live. Do you ever want something so bad that you would do anything? For me, I have nothing else to do except cry out to God, and then he answered my prayer and I survived. So I was able to escape and get out from the country. That's why I'm here. So you see the good ending, right? I'm here. I have been here for 40 years. I'm so grateful for the country and for all the people that helped me to rebuild my life. So I wrote my journey in my book. It's called How I Survived the Killing Fields. That is my book, and it's available on my website, sarahm.com. And now I'm also an inspirational speaker. So if you ever need somebody to inspire your group or your meeting, just reach out to us, to me or to Lee. And to Alan, we all grow up in Toastmaster. So
Thank
back
you,
to you,
Sarah.
Lee.
Yeah, thank you. We all have story to share, and not just to share our story, but we hope that we inspire you with our story so you also can do the great things that you dream to do. So my story is a little different but the same. I am the neighbor country of Cambodia, which is in Vietnam. That's where I was born. And luckily, unfortunately, I'm not Vietnamese. It doesn't make any difference. I'm Chinese, but I'm still in Southeast Asia. But it's a times frame area, 1975 to 79, that we were oppressed by communists. And by 79, that we would just have to look out to the sea for hope, hope of freedom, hope of one day we can do whatever we want with anything that we have. We don't have to constrain by the government saying that you only have a portion of this. You can only allow a portion of that, and no dreams is available. So, so we took off and out in the sea with many times that we didn't think we'd make it. Um, and again, God's a savior, and we get to America, and it took me 40 years later to be able to tell my story on the TEDx stage and also on the book. That it's incredible to write because it's just like you have to put yourself back into the situation that you were 40 years ago. And it's a lot of trauma, a lot of PTSD that a lot of people willing to walk away from and not wanted to talk about it. But for me, talking about it is healing. And now I'm taking the message out to all the refugee, all the immigrants that even people that were not refugee or immigrant, but you have dream, you can fulfill your dream. Because if the tenacity, if the determination is that strong, you will get there. And the freedom was so craving by all of us, and we had that strong desire. That's how we got here, and that's how I have been succeed in life in my term. To other people, it might not be a success, but to me, where I am here now is my own success, and I'm happy with what I have. And today, I want to introduce you my good friend Alan Cote, Cote or Code,
Cote, yes.
Cote, Alan Cote, who is a professional speaker who has been through a lot of struggling to get to where he wants to be. And he has a really compelling story. And I'm going to let Alan introduce himself and tell us what he has been through and what led him to the journey that where he is right now. So welcome, Alan. Please introduce yourself and tell our audience what exactly you have accomplished and how do you want to share it.
My name is Alan Cote. Well, that's how I used to say it. I grew up with a very severe stuttering problem. My story is not as dramatic as either of you ladies, but thank you very much, Leah and Sarah, for letting me be here with you today. My story was my struggle. It was my adventure. I grew up with a very severe stuttering problem, and that was an example of how I would speak, both repetitive and block. So when I chose to go to college, and I was the first one in my family to go to a four-year program, and I wanted to graduate, the only major that did not require foreign language was civil engineering, was the engineering classes. So I became an engineer simply to avoid a second language. I couldn't speak English. I wasn't going to be able to speak a second language. So that was the beginning of my story. I went on several years, about 15 years as a civil engineer, registered professional civil engineer in the state of New Hampshire, where I grew up. I'm not there now. I'm just south of there. I moved south. I'm in Massachusetts, and not as far south as you guys. But again, that struggle began to shift. You know, I know Leah knows this a little bit, and I think I've shared it with Sarah. There are three frogs sitting on a lily pad, and one decides to jump off. How many are left on the lily pad? Three. Yeah, you knew the answer to this already. Yeah, one decided to jump off. He didn't do anything about it. He just decided. So you need to take action. And that's kind of where I come from, is I want to help people take that next step, to be the next step in their journey. And both of you ladies just shared your steps that you took, and as you are still taking, you know, by writing your books. I don't have a book yet. But I've been doing a lot of notes and a lot of that, and I understand exactly what Leah said. When you survive the struggle, you try to put it behind you to some extent, and I'm pulling it all back out, and that's challenging. And Leah just hit that right on the head. So I got involved because I couldn't answer telephones or present my plans at work. I had to do something. I wasn't moving up in the organization, and I was frustrated. People younger than I was they were actually moving up, and I wasn't getting to do that. Simply, I couldn't speak. Communication is absolutely important. I wasn't afraid of people. I played trumpet, and I played fairly successfully. I played in Carnegie Hall in New York City. They have 2 record albums, one in jazz. And so I was successful in front of people, just don't ask me to speak to them. But James Earl Jones is a big stutterer, and he, of course, has that big, wonderful voice. He rehearses, and if you can rehearse it sometimes, then you can perform it. So there's different aspects to how you handle your stuttering. For me, it was Toastmasters. And I got involved with Toastmasters and began to work my way through the process. And my final process, after all the different levels of speaking skills and leadership skills and the other activities that you have to do, you become a distinguished Toastmaster, which I am. And that's the highest level that you can have in Toastmasters until you get to the professional speaking aspect. So I worked my way all the way through that. And when I got done near the end of that, I said to a friend of mine, I wonder what else I could do. You know, engineering was never really my thing to start with, and I've been doing it for decades. What else could I do? And her response was, well, why don't you get engineers to speak our language? You speak theirs, and I'll get them to speak ours. I'm like, I can't do that. That sounds like seminars and stuff like that. I said, I stutter. I can't do that. She goes, Alan, that's in your head. We don't hear that. How many times have we got something stuck in our head that isn't true anymore? Maybe it was never true in the first place. So I ask you sometimes to check in with where you are, do some self-evaluation, which is the first level of being successful, to know where you are, benchmark, and then we can work from there and climb up steps. That's the beginning of my story, Leah. Do you have any questions or anything for me that you wanted to ask? Or
Yeah, I do. Well, first of all, I want to echo on that engineering degree. I wonder how many people you talk to in the science degree or in engineering degree, are the people who settle because they don't want any other thing. I went to science degree because I didn't like to be writing English or anything that was had a lot of English correspondence. So I settle for science because I know I can memorize formula. And I think
And you
Sarah
and
was
you
very
wrote a book,
passionate, right?
and you wrote a book, so you see you totally turned that upside down.
I still didn't believe that I could ever be a speaker or a writer. That was something that, like you said, it's a belief that we planted on our head, and we settle for something else rather than explore
Mm-hmm.
for the possibility. So yeah, I was just saying that, so many of us pick something because we want to avoid something instead of pick it because of the passion. And eventually it will worn out on you. I don't know how long you've gone into your major or your engineering degree. It take maybe a decade, 2 decades, and you find out it's like, oh my God, I'm not in love with it. Why am I torturing myself? And I don't hate it, but I wasn't in love with it.
I was good at it, but I wasn't loving it. It wasn't my
Yeah,
passion.
I was good at
Said.
it too, but I feel like that's not enough.
Well, the
I
funny
can.
thing was, I started to teach snow skiing, and you can't really stutter when you're snow skiing because you're trying to get the kids to do something. You're trying to get them to stop if they're going too fast, and it's like, So I had to fix that just for that. But I realized I like teaching, and so I took my friend's advice, and I literally changed jobs overnight. Went from professional civil engineer to a professional speaker, and started traveling about 3 to 5 cities in the United States, Canada, and England, doing full day business seminars. And I did that for a really long time. It's exhausting out there 47 weeks a
And
year.
the another thing I pick up is scientists usually very good at music, because I've surrounded with a lot of scientists, and a lot of them have a really great outlet in music because they are, creative people too. And I didn't know Jonah Jim or Jones was a stutterer. I had no idea.
Oh, James, yeah, James Earl, yeah.
Jim, yeah. So they say that a lot of time when you stutter, you go with the music beat or the poetry to get yourself out of the stutter. So that's something that I learned in the past. Now I'm kind of hearing you saying again.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a pattern that you need, and I joke now that I couldn't speak for such a long part of my life that now that I can talk, you can't shut me up. So I
Me
found the
too.
right profession. I found the right profession.
I think yeah, that's how I felt like. Okay, I used to afraid of speaking. Now you can't shut me up. It's just like, I don't know, one extreme to the other. But I also want to hear about your experience being what is that, Tony Robbins disciple, and and how do you get back to the business, and what is your journey right now?
The Tony Robbins aspect is kind of a funny story in itself. I was out there teaching seminars regularly, had a long weekend off, and Tony was going to be in Boston. So I got a very reasonable price ticket. My friends were all going, and I didn't really care about Tony Robbins. I mean, he was that ginormous guy. He was about a foot taller than I am, just enormous guy. And he's, always on TV. He used to be the late night TV guy when I was growing up. And I wasn't really all that interested, but he is one of the most successful speakers in the world. And I wanted to see what the successful people do. They say that if you're as good as the average of 5 people around you.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to see what he was doing. So I went to the show to see the stage, the lighting, the music, everything but him. So at the scale at the beginning, he said, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you today? And I was about a 3. And I get to 4, 5, 8, 10. The room gets louder and louder. 11, 20, 25, 100, 150. I'm like, what am I in a cult? What is this? This place was going nuts to get to 500. The place was ready the roof was ready to come off. So I was a 3. So it tells you where I started. But I was the first guy in the first fire lane to walk across the fire later that weekend. I really got into it. He was amazing. I learned a lot. In fact, I learned so much. I took a friend to see him later on when he was in New York a few years later. And I worked behind the stage with the crew. And I was the guy that stopped everybody from running across the coals before. They actually ran across.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was
Amazing
interesting.
how you put yourself out there.
Well,
And
we got to stretch all the time, right?
yeah,
Right, Sarah. We're always stretching somehow. We're always stretching.
Yeah.
I stretch. I just didn't get any taller.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. It's the same thing. But I have a lot of respect for Tony and understand now really what it is that he does. And I think a lot of that were the things that I was doing. In fact, I ran into one of my students that I had just that week, and she ran into me in Boston, and she said, "Oh my God, I can't believe you came to see Tony. I thought you weren't going to go." And I said, "No, I told you I wasn't going to, but I'm here." And she says, "Well, this is great. I want you to introduce my friends. I want to introduce you to my friends." And I said, "Okay." And she goes, "This is the guy that I was telling you about. There was a seminar leader the other day that I had. He's just like Tony." I'm like, "Yeah, right." I don't think so. But, it's exciting to kind of watch how people pull that energy together. And it's about where people, you can't motivate anybody. They have to want it. The motivation is like pushing on a rope. It doesn't work. You can string them along. You can help them find their way and help them take little steps to make progress. And that's, just see behind me. That's called
what I
Be the
want to
Next Step.
say. Yeah, that's a really clever way of displaying your branding. I love it.
Yeah, I'm working on that. So what I've done over the time is actually I came off the road seeing Tony in August of 2001, right at the end of August, and I was debating what to do next. And my company went bankrupt, and I didn't have any money. They had all my credit cards that they owed me money on that I didn't have. And so I took some time off the beginning of September 2001. What happened a couple of days later? 9/11. Changed the whole world and the whole concept. So from that point on, I began doing other things, making the bills, paying the bills, paying off those credit cards, but not doing my passion. And I guess it took me another world event to bring me back, because now that COVID's coming through us the way it has, I'm stepping back on that platform or earning my way back to that platform to be able to get out and speak. And it's a different world now to work this way. I mean, I would never have had this chance to sit with you guys from Boston to Florida. It just wouldn't have happened. So we're lucky that we've learned some new things. So it's exciting, and that's where the new branding is coming in, and that's where the new energy is coming from.
So that's the next step for you, Alan.
It is.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that now you can speak in front of thousands or tens of thousands without.
I haven't done tens of thousands yet.
Yet. But I'm saying, look, you are already, and you can be actually standing in front of thousands or tens of thousands. It's no different than standing in front of two Asian lady.
Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me for that. Sorry about that. I thought I had everything off. Don't you love it when it goes off like that? Right into the microphone.
So I like to hear what is another tool that make you change your life. You told us about Toastmaster that you can get rid of the stutter. Is there another tool that you want to share?
Thank you, Sarah. That's a great question. The Toastmaster aspect is a lot of practice. Practice. The old joke, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice. Or stage time, as Leah and I talk about on a regular basis, that practicing. And that's what Toastmasters gives you, as a chance to practice the tools that you're applying. So again, it's a habit. How do you build your habits? The first thing I always encourage someone to do is to start a journal. And I'm not a writer. I don't like to do it. It's not my favorite thing, but it's a habit that I've tried to pick up, because I start every day with gratitude. Try to list 3 to 5 things that I'm grateful for. If you begin building your mindset about gratitude and focus on the cool things, you begin to notice things like you never noticed before. Mm-hmm. So building an attitude of gratitude is an amazing way to begin the journey. The last thing I do in my journal every night is I list 5 to 10 accomplishments that I made that day. Why do I do that? I mean, I even include make the bed as one of the accomplishments. It doesn't have to be huge. It could be feed the dog or take the dog for a walk, or it could be develop my website. It's a million things that you can put in there. The reason being is I am notorious for finishing the task, good old engineer, finish that project, and then I'm off to the next one. I don't take time to absorb that I did something. And so I'm off to the next challenge before I have a chance to realize what I just did. I accomplished something. So I think that's really important in the journaling. And then anything you put in the middle, that's up to you. But
Yeah,
that's
not
the
just
first.
that. I think the process of writing it down is also give you time to reflect how you can do better, what went wrong or what went right.
You just said something that's important I want to share with this. This is handwriting. This is handwriting. This is not on the computer. It's not a journal or a blog on your computer. Why? You guys probably know why. Why do you handwrite? What makes it different?
It registers better.
Yeah, there are three aspects in learning. It's visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. And the physical aspect of writing it with your hand helps to reinforce and connect through all of your body parts. So you're seeing it. You can say it out loud if you want to, but you're probably saying it in your head while you're writing it anyway. So you're saying it, you're seeing it, and you're physically doing it. And that helps the learning and the whole aspect.
So I want to give a little plug because some people might not understand when you say stage time. So stage time is where I met Alan, and we're gonna have to give a little plug to our mentor in stage time. So go ahead, Alan.
Well, there's another story. Being in Toastmasters as long as I have, I've got to know people from different aspects of Toastmasters. And I've known Darren for about 25 years. And I know you're talking about Darren LaCroix, who's the founder of Stage Time University. Darren is also the world champion of public speaking in Toastmasters. That's the designation that starts at the club level, and people compete at their club level. When they win the club, then they go on to the area, to the division, to the district, then they get to the region, and then to the international. And at the international level, there's a dozen or so people that compete to be the world champion of public speaking. And Darren won that.
I think they have the screen to like 25,000 people.
When you think about all the clubs in the world that there are, it probably
Right.
starts with about 25,000 people, at least, if not more.
Right.
One of the things that I've never been good at that particular speech pattern, that particular program, which is a very tested, tried, true.
Brutal.
Way.
It's brutal.
Every single craft, everything is crafted.
Yeah.
I can't do that so well with a stutter. It still does have effect on me. Maybe someday I'll get there. But I actually feel that I run like two train tracks of sentences in my head. And when this one starts to begin a stutter, I jump across the track to the other one and start to finish the sentence with the other one. So I'm running two tracks in my head all the time of language.
But it's a skill. You have done extremely well. If you didn't tell me, I would have no clue. I don't think Sarah can pick it up either.
Thanks.
No.
So, but Darren has started this program. Like I said, I've known Darren since before he won the world champion of public speaking.
Wow.
We're very fortunate, not only with Darren, we have two other world champion of public speaking that help us all the time. That's Mark Brown and Ed Tate. If I forgot anybody in that group. And then, of course, the runner-up last year was also with us this past weekend, too.
Yeah.
And then we have the other speakers that are in the Hall of Fame for the professional speaking industry. And we have three of those that have been helping us out. So it's a really high energy. Again, let's go back to that. You're the average of the 5 people that you hang around. And so if you want to elevate yourself, you've got to find people to help elevate you. My joke is, even if you fail when you're looking up at that ceiling, at least you're approaching the ceiling. You're heading toward that. That's the arrow back there. You're heading towards something.
So we were just finishing up, well, I was finishing up the 77-day video challenge from the group, and Alan jumped in late, so he's on his way to completion. But that is, like Alan say, it's giving you a building block of habit forming, and by doing that every day, you almost feel like there's a habit. And I'm here every day almost with Sarah. But every time I have to talk solo, I still feel like it's a chore. It's like, you're monologuing, and it's just really hard to get that going.
I saw your garden this weekend. It was fantastic. Sunday when you showed your garden and all the fruit that's growing, I was jealous because we're just barely getting rid of the snow here in Boston. It was 65 today here in Boston, but that's the first time we've seen that kind of weather. You guys have had it for months. But You know, and you're right about the habits. It's really important. And there's a lot of other habits that you can begin to build too in that process. Just take one at a time. You can't do them all at once. So again, start with one and figure out where you are, get that baseline, and then you can start to plan. Set goals, smart goals. That's a whole nother category.
Yeah. But I really like, to emphasize that, I mean, between me, Sarah, and Alan, both of us, Sarah and I, we couldn't speak English when we came here. And even though now we're speaking, we still feel like we might have said things that people don't understand us because, we're still not native tongue to us. And Alan have come across that ocean of stuttering. So speaking is not somebody was born with. Speaking actually is the skill that you keep building and sharpening. And
Yep.
it's always so useful because you can do it for business, you can use it for personal, for sales, for
You know,
anything.
I wrote some notes before we sat down, and I also added in there listening. And one of the things Toastmasters works on is your listening skills.
Yeah.
And you don't think of that when you think of communication. You think of just this going all the time. But it also has to deal with, as Lincoln said, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Perhaps we should use them in that proportion. You know, listen twice as much as we talk. As speakers, I'm not sure we always do that, but we try.
But it goes hand in hand
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you can't correspond unless you listen.
Mhm.
that's correct. That's correct. Yep.
So anything you want to ask, Sarah?
Well, I'd like to ask Alan, how do you suggest that when people want to move on their own journey to something, to reach something, what would be some of the steps that you recommend?
Get a coach, find a mentor, find someone to help you with the process. We just talked about all those great people that we work with at Stage Time.
Mm-hmm.
They all have a coach. They make big dollars and they all hire a coach for specific areas, an area that they may be working in. It could be how to finish that book that's been hanging there. It could be a little bit about polishing their presentation for the next event. But they all have a coach, and that was a fun thing to learn.
Yeah. Well, if you don't have money, find an accountability partner. If you don't have money for a coach, at least have somebody accountable for. I mean, I don't think I could be here a year later without Sarah. I can
Right.
honestly say that.
Accountability is really important, and again, the coaching helps you to do that. But coaching doesn't always mean extra money. You know, it could be somebody that you work with. I don't know.
Mentor, you mean?
Family members can, but I don't usually suggest that. I usually try to find somebody out. Here's one that no one ever thinks about. There's somebody that drives you crazy, a customer that you have that you don't care for, that always is right there and jabs you up. Ask them to be your mentor. You know why? Number one, you learn from them about what it is that's upsetting you that they're doing so that you can work with that. That's a part of the communication techniques that I teach in other parts. The second part is they really respect the fact that you took the time to ask them for help. And so you build a relationship that's different because you asked.
Yeah. You get different energy and you get different skill set.
I bet the next time you go in with that person as a client or a customer, you're going to see a relationship.
Right.
But it's a great way to coach someone that may do something better than you do, but yeah, they're not my favorite person.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think, and sometimes opposite attract. Sometimes the yin yang energy. I think me and Sarah are more like yin yang. That's how we can last in a sense. Because I mean, if one is more calm and I'm more energetic, and you gotta find your complement, your complementary energy. Unless it's completely opposite, then you are just repelling from each other. But if you think that you can find somebody who can complement your energy, your mindset, I mean, I work well with my husband because he's very patient and he is like a steady person, grounded, where I am very bubbly, very energetic. I mean, before I've done this project, I'm already think about a different project. And he's like, no, let me do this another 3 months. It's like, come on, that's too slow, but we
Well,
complement each other.
you know, that's an incredible thing that you just shared, because you're opposite diagonals in the personality layout. When you look at people from a slower paced, more methodical to a fast paced, high energy, and from people focused to task focus, you got that grid. There's a lot of programs that discuss these. But when you look at the opposites, that's the part that usually clashes. And you just described you in one corner and him in the other. So if you can find
I mean,
that,
I'm the starter. He's the clean. He's the ending. You know, he take part at the end, and I point out the project that we're gonna do. It's
he
not
likes,
always work.
right.
I have to tell you, it's not always rosy. But the majority of time, and we lasted for 32 years of marriage and 5 years of dating, so I know it works.
Yeah.
But that is just so much insight, and thank you for giving us so much hope. This is the month of hope that we're talking about. Is the Easter is Christ resurrecting, and a lot of hope are generating. It's the springtime. It's the time for us. I mean, I know first quarter has gone, and if you have not done anything, don't even think about it. Start now. Start here.
That's it. That's it. And if for some reason you miss a day in that journal, you just go back and start over again.
Yeah.
There's very many nights I don't write my accomplishments when I go to bed. I fall asleep. But the first thing I do before I write my gratitude the next morning is I write my accomplishments from the day before that I didn't do yet. So you kind of pick up. There you go. What do you got?
I got this. It's a 3-year journey from 5 and below store. And I do with you. I mean, I kind of skip around, but I do, like, this is the second year that I do almost like every day this year. And last year I didn't start it the whole year. Yeah.
These are $1 at the dollar store. They last me a little while.
But this is
just
3
bought five.
years. They have
bought
calendar, 3 years calendar that you can actually, so, and it's short. You don't have to write a lot. You just write to have a short passage. So, whatever method worked for you, do it. Because gratitude is great, because it makes you reflect and remember. It is a blessing to get up every day. Even though you don't have nothing to thank for, you're thanking that you're getting up and you're still breathing. And you have a roof over your head.
Yes. Yes. Excellent.
Yeah. Gratitude is the beginning of turning into a positive mindset, because you cannot be grateful and be grumble and miserable.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that, Sarah. And you watch somebody who's frustrated all the time. It's like, can you find the silver lining? And I used to hate that when I was grumpy all the time, because I wasn't doing what I loved. Right. I was working in a job that just paid the bills. And now that I've just turned things around this spring, I'm very excited about where I'm going.
There's always a way out. Don't ever look at the sign and say there's no way out or no outlet. There's always a way, but you have to make your own way. So with that, I want to thank you everyone for listening, and please do not forget to make any comments so you can be into a chance of drawing for a Linkit. And I'm telling you, that live performance is very, very captivating. It's a theater performance that everyone synchronistically perform at the same time on the screen over Zoom. So it's very interesting to watch something live like that. So I hope that all of your friends can put a comment and make some engagement, and come back to see us every day. Wow, except Wednesday and Friday. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you guys so much, Leah. Sarah, thank you for me today. It was really nice.
Nice to have you. Thank you.
It was fun chatting with you.
Thank you for the message of hope and inspiration.
Thank you for
anybody can change their journey to better.
Yeah.
Just one step at a time. Just one step at a time.
There you go. I love it. Be the next step.
Be that frog. Get in that pond. Get out there and swim like heck. The water's warm. Don't think about it. Don't be fixing to go there. Do it.
Just do it.
Live it.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you very much.